So, would you all believe that I recorded an entire podcast episode about how I be cussing and I went to save it and it didn't save y'all? It was good too. It was really, really, really good. And I was sad about that. But I picked myself up, went, got in the shower, got my life together. So while I was in the shower, I said now would be a good time for me to talk to the people about my brain people. Because I talk about my brain people all the time, and I've never really explained about my brain people. So, I lately have been getting interested in brain research. And if I draw the path back to where and how, it's probably, well, I've always kind of been interested, not kind of, I've always been interested in psychology and how our minds work and our brains work. But the further that I distance myself from the US, and I realized that a lot of the ways that I show up and a lot of the things that I have thought over times is linked to programming. It's made me that much more interested in learning about how my brain works. I definitely have done some brain research in when I was teaching, because they would hold on a second, y'all. I'm trying to, all right, there we go. So when I was teaching, sorry, I was trying to help myself. I figured out a way to listen to music and do this at the same time, because God sends me messages through music and I want to get them while I'm talking to you all. So I had to set that up. So my bad. I'm back. I got interested in brain research when I was teaching, because I took some PD courses, professional development courses, about trauma and how trauma manifests. And that's when I really started understanding that I had experienced trauma, and thinking about how that trauma had impacted me, and then how I could help children, and then how could I help teachers and educators to understand the impacts of trauma, instead of labeling children as bad and things of that nature. That just never really sat well with me. So I started diving into really thinking about this brain research and understanding even our feelings and emotions. There's so much research that talks about the feelings that we are hardwired with. So like our joy, sadness, disgust, scared, what is it? Happy, joy, tired. Like, there are certain emotions that we come with, and you see these emotions manifest with babies, because they you don't have to teach them. Like, you don't have to teach a baby how to be surprised. That's another one. To be like, you don't have to teach a baby if you go boo and a baby jumps. Like, you don't have to teach them how to do that. So there are certain feelings and emotions that we're hardwired with, and then there are others that we learn, such as empathy and compassion and patience. Like, these are learned skills, and I think a lot of us don't realize that consciously. So we put undue pressure on ourselves and undue pressure on other people and on children, as opposed to treating it like this learning opportunity. So I had really gotten into that type of learning and understanding back when I was in Tampa, when I was teaching, because I really wanted to be able to understand how to help kids who have been labeled as having behavior problems, but in actuality, it's their trauma manifesting. And how can I hold space for that and see them in that and still help them to achieve success? So I really got into it. It was really interesting, and I was doing that externally towards other people, but I hadn't really thought about it for myself. I had not really necessarily sat with it for real and got metacognitive. So metacognition is thinking about your thinking. And that's everything about what I'm talking about today, is this process of unpacking the thoughts that we have and tracing the origin of thoughts and understanding where our thoughts come from and why we think the things we do. Where was that concept planted in our mind? Because again, there are only certain things that we're hardwired with. Everything else is learned. So I had gotten into that, and then that further extended when I really leaned into DEI work and anti-racism work and disrupting those narratives, and helping people to understand that a lot of the behaviors that we see from Black descendants of slavery, let's just say, or children of the diaspora, specifically in the United States, is because of programming, and it is a manifestation of the types of trauma that we have been through and lived through and that we carry and that we've passed down from one place to another. It's a lot. So as I started researching that and really getting to understand about the impacts of racial trauma on us, it made me, again, even more curious about my brain and how that works. And then when I moved to Pennsylvania, and that was the most traumatic experience of my life in Pennsylvania. And it, again, is something that I've talked about in various spaces. If you go to my YouTube page, I Mind My Black Ass Business, you can see some of the videos that I've made about the school improvement system in Pennsylvania. It is so crazy because they some kind of way got YouTube to take it down by talking about they filed legal action and all of this, which they have no legal standing for anything. I have every right to tell my story, and I will. But it also became really, really draining because every time I went back and looked at the artifacts and looked at the things that happened, I was back in that place. Like I was actually living in that place in my mind, like I was there. And it just became a lot. So I had to take a break. I do intend to go back because I never finished telling you all what happened about that and how that ended and how that led to me being here in Medellin. So it's all connected, and I will get back to that. But when I was in Pennsylvania, I was diagnosed with anxiety, depression, and PTSD. And it was due to that extremely toxic and racist and inequitable and horrible system that I worked in when I worked in Pennsylvania. And I had never really been diagnosed for real. So I had depression. I believe I was depressed between the years, that was a long ass time. I was about to say, but it probably was that whole time. Between the years of 2006 and 2000, I probably came out of my depression somewhere around 2017, 2018. And I never was formally diagnosed. But when I reflect back on that time, that was the time when I was with my ex, and he was incredibly abusive. And again, it's something else that I wrote about in my blog on my website, if you care to read and know more about that. But he did a number on me, and it really wasn't a lot of physical abuse. The abuse was more emotional and mental abuse, but it was effective. And it caused me to stay in that situation a long time, and I really had to be able to get myself out of that, and it took some really, really hard work to get myself out. It was a very long process, which is, by the way, the inspiration for my life coaching, because the process that I used to drag myself and claw my way out of depression was because of my therapist that I had at the time, who asked me to um, lean more into learning about my purpose. And she challenged me to take the spiritual gifts test, and I took it. And she challenged me to dig a little bit deeper, and I did. And I never turned back. Like, I just continued trying to learn more and more and more about how God made me and who I am, and who I was intended to be, and understanding that I am not an accident. Understanding that the parts of me that people have demonized were purposeful, and God did that with intention. Like, I went through that process, and that's how I developed Discover Your Destiny, where I help people to hear from God directly and build a relationship with God, where they can have a deep understanding of who they are, who they were created to be, and how they're supposed to impact this world. So, I did that. That was born out of me trying to get myself out of depression. So, I started that discovery of thinking about my thinking and thinking about who had told me certain narratives about myself and where I had picked these things up from. So that was always working in the background. But then when I was formally diagnosed with depression when I was in Pennsylvania, once I got better, I really wanted to understand what was happening to me, because I've never been the type of person to be stressed out by work. Like, work is work, like, you leave that junk at work, it'll be there tomorrow. Like, it's never been a thing for me. So I really didn't understand what was happening to me during that time, and I didn't understand how that had happened to me. And not that I'm special from anybody else, but I had never, work had never been a thing. Like, worrying about work had never been a thing for me. So I didn't understand, and I wanted to understand. But I was drawn to something one of my line sisters had said. And the way that I was able to even get help in Pennsylvania is I had sent out a text message to my line sisters, and I said, I'm not okay. I said something to the effect of, I'm not okay. I don't care what it looks like on social media. I am not okay. And this line sister picked up the phone to find out what was going on, and she was like, tell me what's happening. So I was explaining everything to her and just trying to communicate. But by this point in time, it was so bad that I had like a really bad stutter, and I couldn't even really talk and get my thoughts out. Like, things were just so cloudy. And she said to me, I think you need to get some medicine. I think you need to get medicine. And I said to her, I was like, I think I do. Because I had tried everything that I knew to do to try to help myself to get better, and it wasn't working. And I was like, but I don't want to always be on medicine. And she was like, just because you start medicine doesn't mean you have to stay on it. And she's a doctor. So she was like, just because you start medicine doesn't mean you have to stay on it. But your brain is tired, and you need to help your brain, because your brain is trying to help you, but your brain is exhausted. And for some reason, that resonated with me really deeply, and it stuck with me because when I got the medicine, I'll fast forward to there. First of all, let me not even fast forward to there, because my doctor said something so freaking funny. So when I get into the doctor's office, first off, I didn't know that you could get mental health treatments, if you will, at your primary care physician. I had no idea. I thought you had to find a psychiatrist to be able to get medication for mental health concerns. So I had only talking to therapists, so licensed clinical social workers or what have you, so they couldn't prescribe medication. Not that I was looking for it, but I just thought if you had to get to a place of having medication, that it had to be from a psychiatrist. But my line sister was like, no, actually that's what I do. She's a general practitioner, and she was like, I talk to patients about mental health all the time. You just need to go to the doctor. So I find a doctor, a black doctor, and shout out to Mercy. And so I get into the office, and I'm like bouncing my leg, like, and that's something that you'll see often, like in children. I would see it at school, like they would be sitting in my office and some type of situation is happening, they're bouncing their leg uncontrollably. And I was doing that. I noticed I was doing that, and I was like, man, I am not okay. Like, I'm really trying to keep my shit together in this office, but I'm probably about 2 seconds from losing it. So the nurse comes in and she takes my vitals, and then she gives me, she said, what's bringing you in today? And I said, I'm really stressed out at work, and it's just a lot. It's a lot. And my friend told me to come to the doctor. So that's why I'm here. Like, that's kind of like how I was talking. So she was like, okay. So she comes back in and she gives me this paper. And it was a test, like a survey type situation. And basically it was an anxiety, depression screening survey type thing. So I'm answering the questions, and like it was like 1 is like rarely, hardly ever, and 5 is like every day. And it was like I was circling every day for everything. Like, do you struggle to get out of bed? Like, have you lost interest in things? Have you experienced a panic attack? Have you, like, everything was like, yes, every day, every day. So I give her the paper bag. And I'm just like, I'm already about to cry, because I'm like, this is bad. Like, I'm really, really bad. Like, I'm bad. I'm not okay. I kept saying to myself. And the doctor comes in, and she said, what's going on? And I said the same thing. Like, I'm stressed out at work, and it's a lot. So she said, well, let me pull up your results and she called it whatever the name of it is. And I said, that paper y'all had gave me? And she said, yeah. And I was like, it's bad. It's bad. And I just bust out crying. And she looked at me and she was like, oh, baby, come here. And she was like, come sit over here. Because I was sitting in a chair, like on the side by the counter. And she was sitting over, like by the bed, I guess. I don't know what you call it. At a doctor's office is the bed. I don't know. Where the patient sit. So she was like, come over here and sit down. And she patted my leg and she was like, what's going on? So I was telling her, I was like, I'm just trying to do what's right for the children, and I don't understand like why they are creating these narratives about me, and they keep dragging me into meetings, and I'm having these panic attacks, and I just don't know what to do, and I can't sleep, and I don't eat, and like I just told her all the things. It was so much. And this is how out of it I was. She said, okay. So she listened to me, and I told her all the things. And she said, so we might need to see about putting you on some medication. And she said, have you thought about that before? And I said, I was talking to my friend, my line sister, and about medication, and I said, I think I need it. I said, but I don't remember what the name of it was. I said, she told me, but I can't remember. So she said, what do you want to call her or message her and ask her? And it was like such a small thing. Like, it was such a small thing that I, quote unquote, should have thought about. But I had, like, my brain was so fucked up, I couldn't even think about that. Like, I needed her to suggest that for me. So I said, yeah. So I message her and she sends me and I want to say I probably already had a message in my phone of what it was like, but I think I remembered at that point to look it up. So I told her. So she tells me she's going to give me the medicine and how much the milligrams going to be and what the dosage and all that kind of stuff. So then this is the funny thing, what she said. She said, so I'm going to start you out at this dosage. And she says, I want you to try that out for however many days. And then you're going to go to this dosage. And she said, and if you still giving a fuck about what them white people talking about, then we going to increase it a little bit more. And I thought that shit was so funny. Because the very next day, I take the medicine. And no lie, I'm sitting in a meeting. And I am typing my ass off. Like, I know how to type. I learned how to type in high school. But I had been struggling with typing because, again, everything was so blocked. So I couldn't write. I couldn't type. So the next videos, like, that I'll put out for my School Improvement Pennsylvania series is a lot of videos, me recording myself, because I had lost the ability to really be able to effectively write something down or whatever. It was just so hard. So the next day after I got the medicine, I'm in a meeting and I'm typing my heart out. And I remember stopping and being like, oh, I know this medicine working, because I could not do it. Like, I was like, damn, that's crazy. So I started taking the medicine and it helped a lot. And then I decided that I don't want to be on prescription medicine. I am in my life at a place where I'm becoming more and more conscious of the types of things that I put into my body. And I just didn't want to be on prescription medication. So I started doing research about different types of plant-based medicines and how that could help me with this anxiety, depression, and PTSD. So I'll have to do a whole nother thing about my medicine regimen or what have you. But I have a regimen now that I use consistently. And I haven't been on prescription medication since September of last year. So what's that? This is what? July, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July. Wow, it's been 10 months. It's been almost a year. So I haven't been on prescription medication, and that has made me get even more curious about my brain and how my brain works. So I said all of that background was to understand why I have this thing with brain people, because my brain has been through a lot and I really want to understand and start to appreciate my brain for what it does. So, me and my best friend, it feels weird to not say names, so I'll say names. So Lewis and I have this thing where we were talking about our minds, right? So the way that Lewis thinks is very different, and I love it though because it pushes me to think differently. Lewis is the one who suggested that I visit Medellin when I was in crisis in Pennsylvania. And he's just been incredibly supportive with me moving internationally and me evolving into this version of the person that I am today. So a lot of the conversations that we have are very deep conversations about really deep things, right? I told y'all I don't have surface conversations. So we have like really, really deep philosophical types of conversations, and a lot of those are about our minds and how our minds work. So and our minds work very differently, mine and his. So one day, one of us, I don't remember, but we came up with this thing of talking about brain people. Like, so brain people are the people that are inside our minds that run the operations, basically. So if you think about your mind as an organization, right, and there are certain departments in your mind. So if I use actual like scientific terminology, so for instance, your prefrontal cortex in the upper part of your brain, that is the part of your brain that's responsible for decision making. Right, and then you have your amygdala, for instance, which is your fight, flight, or freeze response. And then you have your hippocampus, which is where your memory lives, right? So your brain is divided, if you will, into these departments, right? So think about your brain like an organization with these different departments. So in those departments, there are people, may or may not, because I also found out that everybody doesn't have brain people. So if you're like thinking to yourself and you're like, oh, I don't have any people, it's possible that you don't. I've heard that it's a thing. But in those departments, there are people, for the sake of my example, that run the operations that are happening there, right? So for instance, I said the hippocampus is responsible for memory, right? So you all have heard me at times talk about how I've lost my train of thought, or I've alluded to whoever the person is in that region of my brain, that they aren't at work today or whatever, right? Because I'm trying to remember something and I can't remember it. So whoever that person is that's in the hippocampus, I need you. Like, where you at? You're supposed to be helping me, right? So your brain has these different departments with different people. So in my brain, I'm going to explain to you all how my brain space is organized, and then I'm going to talk to you all about my brain people, right? So in my brain space, I see my brain space organized into those regions of the brain that I just told you, right? So these different departments. But the departments are also color coded. So like, within the department, there are certain colors that are assigned to certain things. So for instance, yellow is where they're very happy things that are there. Purple is maybe more about things that feel tied to like destiny and purpose. Then green is like creative things. That's what I've been leaning into lately. I've got to really talk to you all about my journey with green, with the color green. Brown is another place that I've been leaning into lately, and that's very much of like the grounded space and where those types of things live. And then blue might be things that are a little bit more fluid, right? So at any rate, it's color coded. So my brain is not fully automated, right? So not fully electronic. We are not on the cutting edge of technology, but we are trying our hardest to get there. We have some folks that are coming along slowly, right? They're trying to get on board, and it's hard, but we're being patient, and we have a plan for getting ourselves further into the technological space so that we don't have to rely on file cabinets anymore. You know what I mean? So that is something. So it's a combination of, there's definitely technology, right? We're not working with Windows 95, okay? So there's definitely technology, but there's also paper, and that's bothersome to me because I don't like papers. Like, don't give me paper anything. I'm gonna lose it. Like, help me file this away somewhere where I can find it when I need it, and it doesn't have to be attached to one static place, because that's the other thing. I live, like, the way that I live, I don't want to have papers. So there's some folks in my brain spaces that they still operate on paper, and that's okay, but like, I need us to move to a more efficient system, right? So you'll also hear me talk a lot about AI and trying to understand AI so that I can leverage that in order to help my brain people, because sometimes we get overwhelmed And it's a lot that's going on. And a lot of it is because of that efficiency part and not having those systems. So in my podcast that got deleted, that I have to redo, I had talked about Cheaper by the Dozen as one of my most favorite books, because the father is an efficiency expert, and everything is about doing things efficiently with the least amount of touches. Like, that is how I want my brain to operate. However, we are not there yet. Okay, so hopefully that paints a full picture for you. So many of you now by this time might be thinking about the movie Inside Out, and that is probably the best way to pull it into a physical form for you to understand what I mean by brain space, right? But there is some type of organization to the space. What I can also say is that, and this is new information, by the way, every time I tell people about this, I learn new things. So I'm discovering some of this for the first time as well. But we're leaning into minimalism, right? So we're trying to get rid of like I said, the old ways, but also get rid of things that are just around, like clutter. We want to have some feng shui up in this bitch, right? So that's also kind of like a piece of the culture that's happening in my brain space. And again, wanting to be grounded and connected. So that's the culture of work. That's how it is physically organized. Now, to the brain people, I don't know how many people are employed in my brain. And I feel bad when I say that, because I feel like I should know, but I don't. So it's something that I have to spend some time like talking through and thinking through with myself, because I don't really know. What I do know is that the people that I talk to are the managers, or the, I don't know I don't have an organizational chart. That might be something I could do, is create me an organizational chart. Because sometimes I feel like I need to have a job fair and I need to hire some people. So yeah, I'm still trying to figure all that out. But anyway, sorry, I don't want to get too off track. So, I talk to whoever these department directors are. Let's just say that sounds fancier than a manager. So whoever these department directors are, those are the people that I communicate with. They, though, have people underneath them that are doing, whatever the other work is. And I don't know how many people those are, right? So I know that have a very good relationship with the executive who is in charge of my memory. And I have a good relationship as well with the director who is in charge of me allowing my feelings to flow. As you see, like during this time, I'm kind of like, sometimes I'll cry and then I'll come back. And like, that's something that I've been practicing and working on. And I'm pretty proud of myself, because I used to not allow myself to feel because I thought I wouldn't be able to turn it off. And now I realize that feelings actually pass through you. Like, they can just visit and just go by, and it's like you don't have to get consumed in that. So I like that. So me and that director have a pretty good relationship. We talk often. And who else is somebody that my comedic director, oh my god, like a hoot, okay, a hoot, because when I get in that zone, honey, we be in here just doing the most. And I also have a creative director regarding some of the projects that I have inside of me that I want to be able to get out, and even this podcast like lives in that area. So anyway, so I have these different directors and of the different areas of my brain, right? Now, this is the thing about my brain people, is that I love them. Like, they are so amazing. And when they are on, they are on. Like, so for instance, you'll hear me say, I just took my medicine, my brain people, they popping, right? But also, they don't really be having patience, because like they'll get excited about stuff, and then everybody is running to the front of the line to try to pass their thought to me. And it's like, yo, I can only have one thought at a time. I need y'all to relax. Okay, I need everybody to relax. I need some order up in here. I need everybody to raise your hand or something. Like, what is happening? Because I will just get these rushes of ideas, and that's what's happening. Like, they are all just standing there waving their freaking white paper in my face, like, pick mine, pick mine. And I just be like, hey, everybody, relax. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Ari Lennox. She's one of my faves. But she has this song and she was like this dude reached out to her. He was like, "Hey, I think you had a crush on me when we was back in first grade." And she was like, "Yeah, I probably did at like fucking 7. Relax. Relax." That is my favorite line. I'm gonna have to find out what song that's from because I don't even know. But that is my favoriteest line of Ari Lennox. And I say it all the time. So anyway, so I be telling my brain people like, relax, niggas. Like everybody sit down and relax. So that is a way that they operate. They sometimes can be very impatient. But when we got us on a good playlist, baby, and we are in the closet or I'm sitting at my computer and I'm flowing, like it is working like a well-oiled machine. I mean, one thing is going to the next, is going to the next. Like everything is just operating smoothly. And that happens. But this is the thing, is like nobody gets to the office until maybe about 1 o'clock, right? Because we don't work on a 9 to 5 over here. Okay. I don't really get my day started probably until somewhere around 1 or 2 p.m., right? So I get up and I kind of start my day at like 11, and that's when I be having to do my little jump start. Like, all right, y'all, like we awake, but they still be getting coffee, they still coming in, eating breakfast. You know how they do, eating breakfast at the desk and stuff. Like, ain't you clocked in? Like, what is happening? So they be needing that little warm up time, right? So then probably somewhere around 1 o'clock or so, it's time to roll. It's time to pop. But baby, at the moment that I tell them that the work is done for the day, they be to working it out, honey. I don't know if y'all saw my Instagram video that I posted with the juvenile tiny desk, back that ass up came out. That is my brain people, honey. Like they are either working or they are to working. Like that is it. There is no middle ground. Like we are either at work or we twerking. So sometimes I spend a lot of time trying to round them up. Like, y'all, I need to finish this. Like, I'm trying to do this and y'all doing everything but this. So as a reward, what I developed is this concept of brain field trips. So brain field trips is when I allow my brain to think about whatever it wants to think about. And I just go down whatever pathway that may look like. So, for instance, I will, like today, I don't really have any plans. So I woke up, it's 4th of July, which means nothing in the rest of the world, but in the U.S., it means a lot to white people. So I will, wake up, I put on my playlist, and I allow that playlist, like remember I said God sends me messages, right? So I'll just allow that playlist to play, and then I'll see what song quickens something in my spirits, right? Do y'all know what quickening feels like? In my body, it feels like a quick, like I was going to say like a lightning bolt, but it's not that dramatic. It's like I feel a flutter. I'm going to call it that. I feel a flutter in my heart, and that tunes me into whatever is happening. So then it's like, hey, God is talking to you. Listen. So then I'll hear a song and I'll get the message in that song, and then I allow my thoughts to go wherever they're going to go from that. So you know how I will tell you all how I have gotten to the place of doing that particular podcast on that particular day at that particular subject. That's what I mean when I say I allow my brain people to take a brain field trip. Like I just allow myself to go wherever my spirit is guiding me. And it's actually a lot of fun. I really enjoy it because I never know where I'm going to end up. I never know what I'm going to create. I never know who I'm going to help. I never know what message is going to come to me. And I just get to walk out that path. So brain field trips is something that I love to do. And my favorite place to do those brain field trips is in the closet. So, I wanted to take this time to explain my brain people to you and to explain the background of my brain people, because my brain people are the core of how I make decisions, and they are the interpreters of what God wants me to say and know and do, right? So like God will deliver a message, and then sometimes my brain people hear it first, they need to get my attention. So that will happen, but it is my pathway, if you will, to hearing from God and communicating, and then that flowing through my body and coming out as some type of creative work. So that's my brain people. Now, what my question is for you is, what are your brain people like? What is your brain space like? It's probably something you may have never thought about before, but I would like for you to think about it. And then I would love for you to share that with me, whether that be in the comments, whether that be through a video link, I don't know, some kind of way. Figure out how to share with me your brain people. You can tag me on Minding My Black Ass Business and on Instagram, and I'll get it there, so you can tag me there, or you can write something down, or even leave a voice message. But I'm just interested in this, and the more that I talk about it, the more that I get excited about it, because the concept really resonates with other people, and it's something that I actually am going to write a book about, because it has been a breakthrough for me in my relationships with other people, in my relationship with myself, in my relationship with God, in the way that I give people grace, in the way that I am learning to honor humanity in every single person, even if I don't like what they are saying and doing. But respecting the fact that they are a human with their own lived experience. Like, it's really unlocked a lot of things and a lot of thoughts and a lot of interrogation into the way that I think for me. So I wanted to gift that to you and share that with you, so that you will have a better understanding of how my brain and my brain people work. So again, I would love for you to share with me how your brain people work and what your brain space is like. On Instagram, I'm at Kimberlyn J and at Minding My Black Ass Business. On Facebook, at Kimberlyn Jackson and Minding My Black Ass Business with 2 Z's. And on YouTube and Patreon, at Minding My Black Ass Business. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. This is a thing, and I am so glad that you are here with me. Now, I got to make sure I save this, because this is another really good episode. All right, bye for now.